You people always seem to have it so easy. That's what Karen said to me just last week, right as I was mowing my lawn, perfectly edged, green as envy, the kind you'd see on a postcard. I remember her eyes, cold and narrowed, drilling into me from across the street. Everything just handed to you, she sneered. I just nodded, adjusted my cap, and kept the mower running, a wall of noise between us and all her venom. That was Karen, all right. A woman whose whole being was bitterness, mixed with a little racism and a whole lot of entitlement, living in a house painted the same tired shade of beige as her soul. Everybody knew who she was. You could feel her presence in the neighborhood, like a pressure system rolling in before a storm. We noticed her the day we moved in, the fake smile that never reached her eyes, the way she'd talk right past my wife as if she was invisible. She was always cooking up some new drama. Today, though, she was about to boil over for real. What started with a snarky comment about groceries would end up dragging all of us into federal court. Our neighborhood looked like a suburban dream, lawns mowed just right, two-car garages, kids' bikes left on sidewalks, the hum of normalcy so steady it almost felt fragile. That's why we chose it, a place to be quiet, to let my wife find some peace after days working in the chaos of national security. At home, she just wanted to garden, cook, sit on the porch and watch fireflies with a glass of sweet tea. I thought we'd found our sanctuary. For a while, we did. Neighbors on either side were kind. One couple brought us jam. The other apologized sweetly whenever their kids kicked a soccer ball into our yard. Then there was Karen, the crack in the perfect picture, always sniffing around for something to complain about. Our welcome mat was too bright. My wife's laughter was too loud. A single weed by the mailbox, she made a federal case out of it. Her racism was slick, subtle at first, tucked behind, you people, and loaded glances at the block party. My wife caught on before I did. She's not just grumpy, she told me one night. She's a true believer. Her hate is the foundation she built her life on. I wanted to believe Karen was just lonely and miserable, but my wife saw through her from the start. She started documenting every little thing. A digital folder of remarks, glances, every time Karen's car seemed to follow us coming or going. I thought it was overkill, just another habit from my wife's work, always preparing for the worst. Turns out, it was genius. Sunday grocery runs were our small escape, just a couple trying to carve out a bit of normalcy. We danced our way through the store, she stuck to the list. I threw in treats and wine. The trunk overflowed by the time we got home. Nothing fancy, just the result of planning and kindness. My wife always made extra for neighbors. But Karen was watching, as always. Her curtain twitched when we pulled in. She's on duty, I joked, but my wife brushed it off, calm as ever. The sun was warm, the air smelled like cut grass, laughter from down the block, a scene out of a commercial, except for that sick sense of being watched. Then Karen came stomping across the street, not even bothering with the sidewalk. Arms crossed so tight her face looked stretched. Wow, she used. That's a lot of food. Looks like you're hoarding. She stopped right at the edge of our driveway, staking her claim. My wife didn't even turn around at first. She just set the bags down and replied, "It's called grocery shopping, Karen. You should try it sometime." No heat in her voice, just facts. Karen's face went blotchy red. "My son hasn't eaten all day," she lied. Her kid's 17. I'd seen him eat an entire pizza yesterday. Maybe you should share some of that. It's the neighborly thing to do. It wasn't a request. It was a demand, pure entitlement. My wife stayed icy. We paid for this. Maybe you should do the same. That's when Karen snapped. "People like you don't need that much," she hissed. "The you people out in the open now, raw and ugly. You're probably on some government program anyway. I'm calling the police." And she did. Right there. I stepped inside for a moment, came back to see Karen on her phone, performing for the audience. Yes, 9/11. There's a suspicious woman. She's going through a car. I think she's stealing. It was so brazen, I almost couldn't process it. She was twisting an ordinary act, unloading groceries, into a crime. My wife stood still, grocery bags in hand, her face calm but her hand shaking just a little. Karen was saying all the right things to incite fear. She's black, aggressive, threatened me, threatened my child. That last part, mentioning her kid, that's the oldest, most dangerous trick in the American playbook. I stood by my wife, not sure what to do. just needing to be there. Stay calm, she whispered. Don't lose your temper. That's what she wants. Sirens wailed, and suddenly there were 2 squad cars in our driveway, lights painting the house in red and blue. 2 officers, one old, one young, strode out, all business, their focus laser-sharp on my wife. Ma'am, step away from the vehicle, the younger one barked, not asking, just assuming. My wife tried to speak, but the older cop cut her off. Let's see your hands and some ID. Now, we lived here, but we were treated like intruders. We live here. This is our house. Those are our groceries. We have receipts, I said, voice shaking. The sergeant barely looked at me. Everyone lives here until they don't, sir. Karen, seeing her chance, started screaming. Check their trunk. They're stealing food from the food bank, robbing the community. They don't belong. The young cop moved toward our car, but my wife stopped him with a voice I barely recognized. Calm but firm, officer, I'd advise you not to search my vehicle without a warrant. The sergeant tried to throw his weight around. Ma'am, we have probable cause, but the dynamic had changed. My wife just looked at him, sadness and steel in her eyes. You sure you want to escalate this? Then, carefully, she reached for her ID. May I retrieve my wallet from my back pocket? The cops froze, hands near their weapons, but she stayed calm, slow, deliberate. What she pulled out wasn't a regular wallet. It was her badge. Federal Homeland Security. The air went dead quiet. The sergeant squinted, read the credentials, and all that local authority deflated instantly. What is that? Karen stammered, her bravado gone. My wife's voice was clear. I'm a senior special agent with Homeland Security. You're standing on my property, blocking me based on a false report filed by that woman, explicitly racially motivated. The sergeant's face went pale. Suddenly, it wasn't a suspicious black woman. It was a federal agent, and this had career-ending written all over it.my wife called her supervisor. Karen started to backpedal. I didn't know. I was just trying to protect my family. It was pathetic. 20 minutes later, her supervisor, a man who radiated authority, showed up. My wife laid it all out. Every note, every slashed tire, every time Karen followed her. Evidence bags, photos, logs, the whole file. The supervisor listened, getting grimmer with each detail. The cops looked horrified. They realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was an ongoing hate crime. It got worse. The supervisor seized Karen's phone with a quick warrant and found a digital cesspool, text bragging about her neighborhood purity watch, plans to call the cops on us, stalker photos, even a text outlining her intention to get us arrested. Suddenly, the victim mask was gone. Karen was arrested on the spot, false report, stalking, federal hate crime. As they cuffed her, she screamed, I didn't know she was an agent. My wife stepped up. That's the problem. You assumed I was a threat because I'm black. Your ignorance isn't an excuse. It's the motive. Karen sobbed as they drove her away. The same police she'd called now taking her to jail. The case became national news. Homeland Security Karen trended everywhere. The trial was a circus. Karen's defense tried to play the anxious mother, but the evidence was overwhelming. My wife was a rock on the stand, laying out the timeline with calm precision, never asking for pity, just facts. When the verdict came, it was guilty on all counts, 8 years in prison, plus mandatory counseling. The judge didn't sugarcoat it. You tried to use the law as a sword against your neighbors because of their race. This wasn't a mistake. It was a campaign. Afterward, the neighborhood changed. Neighbors who'd been silent apologized, some admitting they'd been targets too. We turned our driveway, once the scene of accusation, into a weekly food drive, a living symbol of taking back our space. The police even showed up in civilian clothes, humbly donating, apologizing, promising better training. My wife was commended by her agency, even promoted. Her story turned into a training module. Karen lost everything, her house, her community, her freedom. But you know what? Peace is never perfect. The house across the street stood empty, but the threats didn't disappear. A new neighbor moved in, overly curious about my wife's job, asking strange questions. Karen's son started lurking at the end of our street. Her supervisor suddenly seemed too interested in my wife's high-profile investigations. Then came the hack, her government laptop compromised with military-grade spyware, planted by someone high up, someone who wanted to keep tabs on her. Turned out, her own supervisor, the one who'd saved her, was part of the network she was investigating. Karen had just been the pawn, used to ruin my wife, who now found herself hunted, betrayed by her own agency. So we ran burner phones, safe motel rooms, a desperate call to the FBI's Public Integrity Unit. The advice: act normal. We'll be in touch. My wife returned to war.